All right, West Virginia fans, it's a cold night in Morgantown. We're talking temperature. We're talking offensive scoring outputs. We're talking a lot of things. To talk about it with me tonight, my good friend, Amit Batra. Amit, how we doing tonight?
Could be better. How are you?
Disappointed, man. Disappointed. You and me are in a group chat, and we were talking with our one buddy. And it's like, West Virginia's not going to win these coin flip games forever. But if I had to say how I feel, I would say my first word to talk about this is frustrated.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, it was another cold start, and then just becoming a common theme, right? And when you just don't have the offensive firepower, and you're just not as skilled offensively as some of these other teams, you just can't have those starts, right? And it was frustrating because obviously with honor struggles and really a lot of guys just not having their ideal night. Just one game that really you probably couldn't lose, and then against a Baylor team that's very beatable this year, right? So, yeah, extremely frustrating.
Absolutely. So, Amit, you remember the great Pedro Martinez?
Yes, sir.
So, Pedro Martinez had a quote after he lost to the New York Yankees years back. And he was like, I might as well just call the Yankees my daddy because they own us. Can I give you some stats about this West Virginia Baylor series?
Do it.
West Virginia now falls to 8-19 all-time versus Baylor. This extends West Virginia's losing streak to against Baylor to 8 games. Amit, can you name the last time that West Virginia beat Baylor in a basketball game?
My guess would be that COVID year when they were at home and they beat them, and then everything shut down.
Yes, that is correct. So March 7th, 2020 at home, the last time West Virginia beat Baylor, and that was right before everything shut down. So it's been a long time since we beat Baylor. Again, it felt like we had a chance in this one. Coming into this one, West Virginia was a 2.5-point favorite. And we mentioned Baylor has been struggling. They're on a long road trip right now. They just played at Cincinnati. They didn't fly home. They stayed out, and it seemed like another winnable game. You felt good with the West Virginia's home winning streak, and that snapped tonight, and now it's back to the drawing board for the West Virginia Mountaineers.
Yeah, eventually these slow starts are going to bite you, right? Regardless of who you're playing. And, just going down 15-5, you're just hoping that, eventually they would, get better offensively. And they did at times, but then, go extremely cold again. And I think without Belo tonight, I mean, they were going to be in deep trouble, right? Honor Huff, the way he finished, one of 13, 1 of 9 from 3. You just not, you can't have it, right? I mean, just not, good offensively this year where you can, get past that, right? One of your scoring threats is having that type of game. And, it's just one of those nights where, they were extremely cold once again and just really couldn't bounce back from it.
Yeah, I think the title works out well. Cold night in Morgantown, literally and figuratively. For the West Virginia Mountaineers. We have some comments here already. Coop said, these refs shaking my head. I'm not going to blame the game on the refs. West Virginia did not deserve to win this game. Me and Amit both feel that way. But there was some missed calls. There was a missed call on Honor Huff where he got fouled tonight. There was a few times where West Virginia should have gotten the ball back. There was a great acting job by Baylor's player that got them a flagrant foul. But Amit, it's safe to say, right, that refs or not, West Virginia did not deserve to win this one tonight.
No, they didn't deserve to win it. I mean, the refs, yeah, obviously there's some calls that we're going to remember where they kind of missed, like, Honor's drive where he got fouled, but a couple others. But I mean, the offensive woes, I think, were the bigger problem. You miss 6 free throws, you struggle with turnovers, and you go on these lapses, right, where you're just not scoring. And you're not going to get it done scoring 40 something points or 50 points, right? Eventually, those numbers they're not winning numbers, right? So, yeah, I mean, I think they did some pretty decent things defensively at times in the second half, especially to kind of bounce back and come back from the deficit that they had. But, just where's the offense going to come from? Outside, I think Belo was the only guy that finished in double figures tonight. So, that kind of tells you everything.
Amit, can I give you some stats about the West Virginia offense coming into the game tonight?
Sure.
So West Virginia ranked 16th in the Big 12 in assists.
Yeah.
No surprise there. It just doesn't seem like we have right now a point guard that can really facilitate things. In free throw percentage, they're ranked 14th in the Big 12. They're shooting 68% from the line. They're ranked 16th in blocks on defense, and they're ranked 15th in field goal percentage. And there's a good chance they move into 16th after the performance today.
Yeah, no, it was awful. And I mean, they got to the foul line quite a bit. I think, I don't know how many, was a differentiator as far as free throw attempts, probably 10 plus easily. But, West Virginia missed 6 of those, right? And then you talk about, so they got to the line, 18 times to Baylor's 5, right? So 13 more free throw attempts, but you missed 6. And then, you just have, 28% from 3, 36% from the field. It's not winning numbers, right? And, Baylor, honestly, they missed some shots. So West Virginia had a chance, honestly, in the second half. If they were making some of those shots that they had, this wouldn't have been a game, right? So
we were down by 3, it felt like, for an hour.
Yeah.
I mean, West Virginia, they went on a 7.5-minute stretch without scoring a point. And that was, I did a video yesterday, and I talked about what's holding this team back. And it's some of the stuff that we're going to talk about tonight is the slow starts and the scoring droughts, and the missed free throws and things like that. The scoring droughts have been alarming. There's times where we watch it, and there's not a guy right now when Honor Huff's struggling that can stop the bleeding.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And, the offense always looks so stagnant, right? Guys are just indecisive, trying to figure out who's going to score, who's going to shoot the ball, right? So it's just not the recipe for success, right? And, it's just very frustrating when you watch this offense at times because, you're just trying to hope that, somebody can step up and make some baskets. And I think Bilo did a good job. Chance did a nice job in the second half getting some stuff inside. But then, you don't have an inside presence, right? Scoring. And then you just can't, have a game like you can't have Honor going as cold as he did tonight, right? The offense isn't there.
Let's get to some comments, Amit. Already seen 4 fans flipping out over 1 loss with terrible refs. Them fans over there thinking a first-year head coach with all the transfers is finna win 25 games in the first year. Yeah, I think it's okay to be frustrated, right? Like, I'm frustrated today. Like, I this is not going to be a positive show. This is going to be a very frustrating show based on what we've seen today. And, it's quite frankly, even some of our wins, we've looked, poor at some time. So this is going to be a frustrating show to air out some of how we feel. But I think that it's also safe to say that we're not firing Ross Hodge after 1 year. Kevin Varney said, I don't know why I turned it back on. My mental health can't endure watching them. Screw WVU. I can't let them ruin my life. I wish you guys all the best. Kevin also said, I'm shutting off my phone. I can't follow until I get strong enough. So until on my own. Hey, man, listen, I feel you. Some losses sting more than others. In reality, it's just a basketball game. I know it's frustrating, though. I think as West Virginia fans, we pride ourselves on that logo, and we've seen the heights that we've been to. So it is frustrating, but we're still 5-4 in the Big 12. Is that? I mean, I know that sounds bad because I know we only have 1 solid win there, Mitt. But I mean, how do you feel about this loss? Is the sky falling for you?
Well, I just think there's little room for error at this point in the season, right? Because they didn't do themselves any favors in the non-conference, right? If they had, if they won a couple of those games, the Wake Forest, Xavier's, the Clemson, Ohio States, you feel a little bit better, right? So now the margin for error is just so thin right now where they are in the season, right? I mean, it feels like every game you almost is a must win, especially these games, right? The Cincinnati's, the Baylor's. It's one thing to lose to Texas Tech, BYU, even UCF, but then, some of these teams you just have to beat at this point in the season. So that's what's frustrating. So I think you took a step backwards tonight.
Yeah, I think so too. And like you said, I think if we get the Clemson and Ohio State game, this one doesn't sting as bad. Baylor is a very deceiving 2-7 in the conference. They're still a talented team. They still have guys that could play at the next level. So it is what it is. You got to flush it and move on. Man, look at that. Look at that free throw discrepancy, though, man. 18 attempts for West Virginia, just their 5. But other than that, pretty even game. The only difference is they held the lead for 36 minutes and we had the lead for 2 minutes. So it kind of felt like we were playing from behind the entire game. Let's get to the box score real quick. Skillings had 9 points for them and 5 rebounds. He played 24 minutes. Agbim, 16 points. He really came out the gate hot for them and really closed well for them. I think he was the player of the game for Baylor. Admit.
Yeah, no, he did some good things. I think Carr as well. I mean, they have some talented scorers, no doubt. But I mean, you're at home, right? I mean, I think this is just, it's such a winnable game compared to the Baylor teams of old, right? I mean, this is not a Baylor team that's going to just absolutely destroy you. I mean, they just lost to Cincinnati, who West Virginia beat, and
they're like us. They have 15 new players.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So it's not the Baylor teams that are winning national titles or anything like that. It's not, any of that, not that group, but, definitely have some talented scores, but, I think it was certainly an absolutely, winnable game.
Yeah, Yesufu with 11 points, and he had 3 boards. And Carr, 16 points, 12 rebounds for him, so he had a double-double. So nice outing for him as one of the premier players in the league. And then going over to West Virginia, Lorient, 19 points. But the only problem was he was the only guy in double figures for West Virginia. If you would have told me after the start that Trace and Eaglestaff had that we'd only have one guy finish in double figures, I would have told you that you're crazy. So, yeah, Lorient was really good tonight. But other than that, not too much to take from here. I thought Chance Moore did some good things. Was 4 for 5, and I think he's done okay. But other than that, man, I mean, you mentioned it. Honor Huff 1 for 13 field goals today, and the one he made was from he made it from Wheeling. I think he made it from the parking lot. So I don't know. It's just frustrating, man. It just feels like the offense. And this is not a one-off for the offense. I mean, this is a consistent theme that we're seeing with this team at this point is slow starts and the scoring droughts. Like I said, there's times we go on 7 or 8 minute scoring droughts, and it's like who's gonna score? Amit, does it just seem to me when I watch this, am I getting the same thing as you? Like, I just feel like there's no flow to the offense. We don't have like a point guard that can drive to the basket, so we can kick it out to other players. It's a lot of outside shooting. We can't get to the paint, and I'm not sure what the cure is to the offense if people are going cold.
Yeah, no, it's just, a lot of passing, a lot of indecisiveness. And I think, Bilo, I think, is just a very smart player. He does, what he's supposed to do inside, and I think his athleticism really helps. But then you have, some of the other guys who are just kind of just standing there sometimes or, just not aggressive enough for me, really. And I thought, just Honor, just, like we talked about, just very cold tonight. And he's a streaky guy, but I mean, at home especially, it's really tough, right? I mean, on the road we've seen some struggles from him, but tonight, I mean, I don't know if I hope he doesn't have another game like this because you really can't have it with the offense. And then Trayson, he made some threes in the first half. I thought he was a spark, but then doesn't score in the second half, right? I mean, it's just difficult when you have one guy in double figures and you're basically relying on one or two guys to kind of score every night, right?
Yeah, Trace and Eaglestaff, there were some times, man, where he was turning it over at the end of the game, like, oh my God. Like, there's some times where he's dialed in, and there's some times where you're screaming at the TV.
Yeah.
So let's get to some other comments, and then we'll get into our thoughts, and we'll move this on. He said 5 was faking the injury when they called the flagrant on Bilo. He acting hurt on the ground, then got up and laughed at the crowd. Yeah, I noticed that too. I think that doesn't even get reviewed if he doesn't do the acting job there. I think it's a basketball play. But if you watch it in slow motion, who was that called in Bilo?
Yeah. Yep. He hit him
in the face. When the hand goes up in slow motion, looks worse on TV. Yeah, but if he never acted there, that stunk. That was a call that I was like, all right, come on. Like, you could tell he was kind of acting there. I agree.
He's watching the NBA. He's watching.
He is. He's watching. Well, he has a G League player on his team, doesn't he?
Yeah, right. Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, he has a G League player on his team. Got to bounce back for Cincy. Yeah, we're going to talk about that in a second. I don't think Honor can accept having a bad game and pass when he's off. Having okay, I agree, but I also think he has to keep shooting because eventually I think he is going to get going. And quite frankly, no one else besides Brendan Lorient was getting it going anyway. I think my problem with the offense is, like I said numerous times, there's just no flow to the offense at all. They cannot facilitate. They like I said, they're ranked 15th in assists in the Big 12. It's just a struggle. It feels like it's I'm not sure if it's just like the pace of how they play with it just going late in the shot clock, but there's a lot of standing around. No one's driving to the basket. It's really, really frustrating to watch when it seems like there's a lid on the basket when you can't score for about 7 minutes straight. Let's get into some notes that we haven't already talked about. Slow start once again. We talked about that. Baylor red hot from 3-point land Amit. So they started off 7 for 11 and 7 from 13 to end the first half.
Yeah, no, they definitely had a great start. I mean, luckily they cooled off a bit, moving on. But yeah, I mean, they have some talented players like we just talked about. So, obviously that didn't help West Virginia's offensive woes in the first half as well.
Eagle staff was a spark in the first half, but disappeared in the second half. He just he wasn't able to get a shot. Baylor man-to-man defense, especially in the first half of it, was causing the Mountaineers fits.
Yeah, and I mean, West Virginia just doesn't have those guys that can just beat you right when you're playing that type of defense. They just don't have those ISO guys really that can handle that. So I think it was a good strategy and gave West Virginia fits for sure.
Offensive woes catch up to West Virginia. We kind of talked about this a couple times based on how they played the other night. It felt like they didn't deserve to win that game, quite frankly. I know they did enough to win, but you should never apologize for wins. But you knew eventually this was going to happen. I told my dad when I was watching it with him tonight, I'm like, this feels like Groundhog's Day, which is funny because Groundhog's Day is coming up on Monday. But if anyone's seen the movie Groundhog's Day, it's like you're replaying the same day every time. And I feel like a lot of times we could put in the same notes that we do each and every game. Yeah. Slow starts, scoring droughts, missed free throws. Honor was cold. Who else stepped up? It's becoming an issue. Belo, very good. Only reason why West Virginia stayed in it. I totally agree, Amit. Lost a crucial game at a time where West Virginia has room for error. We touched on that. Chance Moore. Again, we mentioned this a bunch, Amit. He got inside and made some nice plays. I feel like Chance Moore, again, is besides him and Lorient, they're the only guys that can score in the paint and really get to the rim consistently.
Yeah, no, absolutely. They're very athletic, and they are able to get some easy baskets, which is nice because it doesn't happen often for West Virginia, right? So, I think West Virginia relies on those guys heavily for their athleticism and getting some easy stuff inside. So, credit to Chance for stepping up when West Virginia really needed it.
Yeah, we mentioned the free throw problems, and nothing's more frustrating when you have a one-on-one and you can't hit your one-on-ones. So. That was frustrating. Baylor made more shots when it mattered. It was funny. The announcers were getting super frustrated by the game tonight with when West Virginia was on the scoring drought, Baylor was on a similar scoring drought. He's like, the next basket wins.
Yeah.
So it's frustrating. And, I think for us West Virginia fans, the defense is really solid, but what's going to keep us out of the NCAA tournament is going to be this offense, I think.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, eventually it's going to catch up to you, right? You just can't keep having these performances. And I think you're right. I think West Virginia got lucky against K-State, and that might just be because K-State's not going to kill you as well offensively, right? And
K-State was missing four key players.
Sure, absolutely. And I mean, West Virginia's probably lucky in this one that Baylor was missing as much as they were because they were probably getting some good looks, right? And, in the second half. But, if they make those looks, they're probably at double digits. So, yeah, I mean, the offensive woes are really concerning, and I think West Virginia really needs to address that because you're not going to win some of these games coming up if you keep continuing to play like that.
Now let's look at what's up next. So there's nine games left now. We're past the halfway point. We're 5-4 in the conference. So, or this is the halfway point, right? 5-4. You play 18 games, right?
Yep.
So there's 9 games left. You get Cincinnati, who you've already beaten this year, but that's on the road. Get a nice layoff here, though. You get a nice 4 or 5 day buffer here to get ready for that one. Quick trip. So hopefully a lot of Mountaineer fans are out there. And then we get a Super Bowl Sunday matchup at 1:00 on Fox. That should be exciting versus Texas Tech. Then you get at UCF, who had a big win at Texas Tech. Texas Tech was at their place today. Utah's really struggling. TCU, Jamie Dixon's always going to have those guys ready to play. Oklahoma State should be a fun one. BYU is really good, who dropped one to Kansas today. And then you get Kansas State again, who I'm sure it will be more healthy the next time we play them, and that's on the road. And then you get UCF again. Amit, what are your thoughts on the rest of the opportunities ahead of the Mountaineers?
Yeah, I mean, each with this loss, each game becomes more and more pressure, I think. And West Virginia really needs to win Thursday because it's not going to get easier, right? And then with the road especially, right? I mean, they've struggled on the road, so I think, for them to win on the road against a team like Cincinnati is pivotal, right? Because then Texas Tech, is obviously a big opportunity for a quad one, win. So I think, West Virginia is really in need of that. So if you can somehow get that one, that's huge. But yeah, still have opportunities. Obviously becomes more difficult now, being that every game is going to matter so much more, because the margin for error is just so thin. So, I think they're going to have to finish strong. Probably out of these 9 games, I think they have to win at least 6 and maybe one in the conference tournament to have any shot in the NCAA tournament. But this loss, absolutely stings, because. I mean, they just didn't look good offensively, and then just makes them have more pressure moving forward.
Yeah, now you're 5-4. You have to go on the road, which has been a struggle at times for West Virginia this year. So hopefully you can get Cincinnati. If not, you're going to be 5-5. Looking at a Texas Tech coming here just a few short days later, and then you have UCF. So you don't want this thing to get away from you. So Thursday is going to be an important game for West Virginia as we turn the calendar to February. All right, Amit, let's talk about the last topic before we get out of here. Since we lost, let's talk about our old Big East foes and their woes, because that can cheer us up a little bit. So let's start with the news about Pitt. So I'm sure you saw this. This is some old news now, but haven't had a chance to react to it. Pitt football is reducing their stadium capacity by 17,000 fans. I think they're going to tarp off the top sections for certain games. What are your thoughts on Pitt deciding to do this, Amit?
I mean, I think it makes sense, right? We all know like their attendance hasn't always been amazing, even when they're, actually competitive, right? So I think, it makes sense, for them to always, for them to have a packed house is kind of a rarity. So I think it makes a lot of sense because their attendance, yeah, have been, they've had some struggles there.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that is why I appreciate West Virginia being a college town. Both
Yeah.
both these schools that we're going to talk about, I don't think are college towns. Pitt is not a college town. You have the Penguins and the Steelers, that are the main ticket. I mean, the Penguin fans, I remember being at West Virginia, the Penguins fans are diehards, man. They absolutely love hockey in that area of the country. They love their Pens, who actually just beat my Rangers today, too. So it's a double whammy for me. But it's not the hot ticket in town, the Steelers are. And you have a non on campus stadium, it's gonna be a hard sell. But the thing is, Pitt was good this year. Pitt uh, they were good against teams that they were beatable against, but it's not the old Pitt when Dan Marino was there and those teams. And I think also too, you look at the conference realignment, like West Virginia is not on the schedule, and that was always a team to sell out that stadium. So I'm sure the next time West Virginia plays at Pitt, that they will make an exception and they will fill that stadium for sure. But I do think it makes sense for Pitt because there's a lot of yellow seats
Yeah.
out there, and they probably want to stack people inside the bottom. And I think the other thing with that too is, not to be naive, not to kind of defend Pitt. I think a lot of times the product on the TV is also really strong. For example, there's times where I'm like, oh man, like I would love to go to Morgantown and see a basketball game. But then I have my 2 kids that are running around like crazy up here. And I'm like, man, I'm kind of happy that I just stayed here and they can run around and be comfortable instead of taking that trip down there. So I do understand sometimes with the technology that's at our fingertips, sometimes watching the game at home is also good. All right, let's talk about Rutgers. So Rutgers, I think, is whole different ball game. These were some crazy numbers amid this week. So Rutgers athletics hit a record for $78 million deficit. New AD says it's got to get better. Rutgers lost $517 million on athletics since joining the Big Ten. Amit, what are your initial thoughts on that for Rutgers?
Yeah, no, it's pretty alarming. Obviously, they get a share from the Big Ten, so to have these numbers is kind of, their athletics department has kind of been, struggling a little bit, and I don't know if they've ever been, a great fit for the Big Ten. Just being that some of the powers that they see within the conference, and I just don't know if they can compete against those powers. So yeah, I mean, I'm not completely shocked about some of the numbers, but yeah, I just don't think it's been a great fit for Rutgers in the Big Ten, to be honest, even with the market that they're in.
Yeah, Maryland and Rutgers just never to me seemed like Big Ten teams. When they
Yeah.
both moved together, I'm like, what are we doing here? I know it's the New York City market, but Amit, how far do you live from Rutgers, where you currently live?
Now, probably about 20 minutes.
I live about 45. And if you drove up here in New Jersey where I live, you wouldn't even know that Rutgers existed. Like it's like how like in Morgantown, like it hits like August and July, there's like a buzz around football season around the town and like people get ready for it. Like I just don't think that's the case with Rutgers. You talk about Rutgers is in a New York City market, which means they compete against major New York teams. The Giants, the Jets, even though they suck and they haven't been great for a while, the Rangers, the Devils, the Knicks, the Nets, all these major sports teams, Rutgers is like the 12th best option to go watch.
Yeah.
And since joining the Big Ten, they haven't been competitive. And the one good thing about joining the Big Ten, if you're Rutgers, was the money, right?
Yeah.
Was, hey, we're going to get a big payday out of here. We might not win much, but we should be able, with TV revenue and our share in the conference, do well. Well, now we find out they're not winning and they're millions and millions and millions of dollars in debt. I think moving to the Big Ten was a terrible move for Rutgers. And the scary thing is they've been bad to mediocre with being in a deficit. Could you imagine if they have to cut things or try to balance the budget out? It's going to be really tough for Rutgers to compete in the Big Ten.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I've been my fair share of Rutgers football and basketball games. I think it's a much better place to watch basketball, to be honest. I think they can actually fill that place up at times. And, they've actually had some quality wins at home. But football is just it's not a great atmosphere, to be honest. There's a lot of empty seats, especially towards the top when you go to home games. So, and then some of it's just, retaining some of the talent within the state, right? They lose a lot of their top talent to teams like Ohio State, programs like Michigan, because they just can't. New Jersey has a lot of talent, football and basketball, and they just, they're not able to hold them, unfortunately, for them.
Yeah, I mean, if you're a New Jersey kid, though, right? I mean, would you rather go to Tuscaloosa, Alabama, or New Brunswick, New Jersey?
Yeah.
You're going to go to Tuscaloosa or Baton Rouge or some of these places. You're not going to go to Rutgers, who's historically been a doormat at a lot of conferences that they've been in. But it makes me miss the Big East a little bit, to be honest. I miss playing both Pitt and Rutgers. I miss playing Seton Hall in basketball and Syracuse. I miss this stuff, but it's just crazy. And I think the scary thing is, like, Rutgers put their numbers out. I really wonder where West Virginia holds. I think Ryan Baker's doing a great job, and I hope that we're not in a deficit or anything like that. But those numbers were definitely eye-opening for me. Amit, any last words before we get out of here tonight?
Yeah, no, I think it's, obviously a tough result today. The offense once again continues to struggle, and just hoping they can figure it out and, put together a decent performance against Cincinnati come Thursday, because I think that's an absolute must win. It feels like every game's a must win, but look, West Virginia really didn't do themselves any favors early in the season, so it kind of is what it is right now.
Absolutely. We'll talk to you guys soon. I know for me, I'm probably going to put out a baseball preview probably pretty soon, because it's only 13 days away. So there'll probably be some baseball stuff going on. Hopefully they can rebound. I know the only thing that stinks is we have a few days to think about this one now, because we have to wait until Thursday to play. But have a great rest of your night. We'll talk to you guys next time on the JerseyEER Show.